The Valari ships came on a quiet morning when the three suns of Kesara had just risen over the purple mountains. Tal remembered that morning well. He was only 16 years old then, helping his grandmother harvest the glowing fruits from their family garden. The fruits pulsed with soft blue light, and his grandmother hummed an old song as she worked. Then the sky turned dark with ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. They blocked out all three suns and cast shadows over the entire valley. The Valari Empire had come to Kesara. Tal's people, the Kesarans, had no weapons. They had no army. They had no warships. For 10,000 years, they had lived in peace on their beautiful world. They grew food. They made art. They sang songs that echoed across the hills. They communicated through the soft glow of their skin, colors shifting to show emotions that words could never capture. War was something they only knew from old stories. Violence was a disease they thought the galaxy had cured long ago. They were wrong. The Valari soldiers landed in the central plaza of the capital city. Their armor was white and gold, decorated with the symbols of their gods. Their leader was a tall woman with cold eyes and a smile that held no warmth. She called herself High Priestess Lyra of the Third Moon, and she announced that Kesara now belonged to the Valari Empire. "Your world has been chosen," Lyra declared, her voice carried by machines to every corner of the planet. "You will serve the true gods now. You will work. You will obey. You will be grateful for the gift of our civilization." The Kesarans did not understand at first. They tried to talk to the Valari, to explain that they wanted only peace. Tal's grandfather, an elder of their village, walked toward the soldiers with his hands open and his skin glowing a soft green color of friendship. A Valari soldier shot him without hesitation. Tal watched his grandfather fall. He watched the green glow fade from his skin until there was only gray. His grandmother screamed, a sound that Tal would hear in his nightmares for the rest of his life. The occupation began that day. The Valari were efficient in their cruelty. They divided the Kesarans into groups. The strong ones were sent to work in the mines, digging for metals that the Empire needed for its endless wars. The skilled ones were sent to factories, building weapons they did not understand. The old ones and the sick ones were taken away. The Valari said they were being cared for. Everyone knew that was a lie. Tal survived because he could learn languages quickly. Within a month, he could speak Valari better than most Valari children. The occupiers found him useful as a translator, someone who could give orders to the Kesaran workers and explain the Empire's demands. He hated himself for this work. Every day, he stood between his people and their captors. Every day, he translated commands that broke his heart. Work faster. No food until the quota is met. This one is too slow. Take her away. But he also survived. And survival meant he could watch. Tal's younger sister, a gentle girl named Yuna, was 14 when the Valari took her. The soldiers came to their home one night and said she had been selected for religious education. Their mother begged and cried. Tal tried to stop them, but a soldier hit him with the back of his weapon and left him bleeding on the floor. They took Yuna anyway. 3 months later, they brought her back. She was alive. But something was wrong. The glow was gone from her skin. She no longer changed colors to show her feelings. She sat in the corner of their small room and stared at nothing. When Tal tried to talk to her, she did not respond. Whatever the Valari called religious education, it had broken something inside Yuna that could not be fixed. Tal's hatred grew cold and hard, like a stone in his chest. He smiled at the Valari officers. He translated their commands perfectly. He pretended to be the obedient servant they wanted. But at night, he searched. His grandmother, before she died from sickness and sorrow, had told him about something hidden beneath their old family home. A machine from long ago, from before the Kesarans chose peace, from a time when they had spoken to other worlds. It took Tal 4 months to find it. The entrance was buried under the ruins of their garden, where the glowing fruits had once grown. Now, nothing grew there. The Valari had poisoned the soil to build a landing platform for their ships. The machine was old, covered in dust and silence. But when Tal touched it, lights flickered on. A screen glowed with words, in a language he did not know. He spent weeks learning how to use it. The machine was a communication relay, designed to send messages across vast distances of space. The Kesserans had built it thousands of years ago, when they still talked to other species, before they chose to be alone on their quiet world. Tal did not know who might receive his message. He did not know if anyone was listening. The Valari controlled most of the galaxy. Their empire stretched across 1,000 systems. Who would be brave enough to challenge them? Who would care about one small planet full of peaceful farmers? Then he remembered the stories. The Valari priests spoke of them sometimes, always with fear in their voices. They called them the demons of Sol, creatures from a distant star who refused to bow to any god, creatures who fought with terrible weapons and never surrendered, creatures so dangerous that the Valari had forbidden all contact with them. Tal had always thought they were myths, a story invented to scare children. No species could really be as terrifying as the priests described, but myths were all he had left. He sat before the ancient machine and typed a message in every language the device knew. He did not know the words of the demons of Sol. He did not know if they could understand him, but he tried anyway. "Please," he wrote. "My name is Tal. My world is called Kesara. We are dying. The Valari Empire has taken everything from us. We have no weapons. We have no army. We have no hope. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. Please. Anyone. Help us." He sent the message into the darkness of space. Then he went back to his small room, where his broken sister sat staring at nothing. And he waited. He did not expect an answer. He had prayed to demons out of desperation. Nothing more. But sometimes, in the darkest moments, the universe listens. And sometimes, the demons answer. 3 months passed after Tal sent his message into the void. Nothing changed. The Valari continued their occupation. More Kesserans died in the mines. More children were taken for religious education. The purple mountains turned gray from pollution, and the rivers ran dark with waste from the factories. Tal stopped hoping. He told himself that the message had been foolish. The demons of Sol were just a story. Even if they existed, why would they help strangers from a world they had never heard of? The universe was cold and empty, and no one cared about one small planet suffering under the boot of an empire. He focused on survival. He translated for the Valari. He brought food to his mother and sat with his silent sister. He watched the occupation grow tighter, crueler, more complete. High Priestess Lyra had made Kesara her personal project. She built a temple in the center of the capital city. A tall, white building, decorated with gold. Every week, she forced the Kesserans to gather and pray to the Valari gods. On the morning, everything changed. Tal was translating a speech from Lyra to a crowd of frightened Kesserans. She was explaining that their suffering was a gift, that pain brought them closer to the gods, that they should be grateful for the Empire's attention. Tal spoke her words, but he felt nothing. He had become numb to the cruelty. It was the only way to survive. Then the sky flickered. Everyone looked up. The Valari soldiers raised their weapons, confused. High Priestess Lyra stopped speaking and turned her cold eyes toward the clouds. High above Kesara, something was happening. The Valari had 300 warships in orbit around the planet. These ships were the pride of the Empire, each one capable of destroying a city with a single blast. They formed a wall of metal and weapons that no enemy could pass. One by one, those ships began to die. Tal could not see the battle, but he could see the results. Bright flashes of light appeared in the sky, like new stars being born and dying in seconds. The Valari soldiers began receiving messages on their communication devices. Their faces went pale. Some of them started to run. In 11 minutes, 300 Valari warships were destroyed. Then a voice came through every speaker on the planet. It spoke in the Valari language, but with a strange accent that Tal had never heard before. This is Admiral Park Gina of the Earth Coalition vessel, Defiance. We received a distress call from this world 3 months ago. We are here to respond to that call. Tal felt his heart stop. Earth Coalition. He did not know that name, but he knew what it meant. Someone had heard his message. Someone had come. The voice continued, calm and steady, like the speaker was discussing the weather rather than addressing a conquered planet. To the Valari forces on the ground. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Release all prisoners. Lay down your weapons. Gather in the central plaza and wait for our forces to arrive. If you cooperate, you will be treated fairly and return to Valari space unharmed. A pause. Then the voice grew colder. If you do not cooperate, we will come down anyway. And we will not be as gentle as we were up here. The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one moved. The Kesserans stared at the sky. The Valari soldiers stared at each other. High Priestess Lyra stood frozen, her face showing an emotion Tal had never seen on her before. Fear. The next hour was chaos. Valari commanders argued with each other. Some wanted to surrender. Others insisted that the Empire would send reinforcements, that they could not show weakness, that their gods would protect them. Lyra silenced them all with a single command. We do not surrender to demons, she said. Prepare for battle. Kill the prisoners if necessary. We will hold this world, or die trying. Tal understood then that the Valari would not give up. They would fight, and many Kesserans would die in the crossfire. He needed to warn whoever was coming. He needed to tell them that his people were not the enemy. But he had no way to contact the ships in orbit. All he could do was wait and pray that the demons were as powerful as the stories claimed. Exactly 1 hour after the transmission, ships descended from the clouds. They were smaller than Valari warships, built for speed rather than size. They were painted gray and black, with strange symbols on their sides that Tal could not read. They moved in perfect formation, like birds flying together, and they landed in the fields outside the capital city. The doors opened. Tal did not know what he expected. The Valari stories described monsters, creatures with burning eyes and teeth like knives. They said the demons of Sol drank blood and ate the flesh of their enemies. They said no species had ever survived a war with them. The creatures that walked out of the ships were not monsters. They were small. Much smaller than the Valari, barely taller than young Kesserans. They had soft skin in shades of brown and pink and tan. They had 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs. They wore gray uniforms and carried weapons that looked almost like toys compared to Valari rifles. They were smiling. The Valari opened fire immediately. Energy blasts flew toward the newcomers, bright and deadly. Tal expected to see them fall. Instead, the small creatures moved. They moved faster than anything Tal had ever seen. They dodged and rolled and ran, their bodies flowing like water around the enemy fire. And then, they fired back. Their small weapons made soft sounds, almost gentle. But where those shots hit, Valari soldiers fell and did not get up. The creatures advanced in perfect coordination, each one covering the others, never stopping, never retreating. Within minutes, the Valari defensive line collapsed. Tal watched in shock as the small creatures spread through the city. They did not burn buildings or kill everyone they saw. They were precise. They targeted only soldiers, only weapons, only threats. When they found Kesseran prisoners, they stopped fighting and helped them escape. One of the creatures approached Tal. It was a young male, with black hair and kind eyes. He holstered his weapon and held up his hands to show they were empty. "Are you hurt?" he asked in broken but understandable Kesseran. Tal shook his head, too stunned to speak. The creature smiled again. "Good. I am Sergeant Yoon Do-hyun, Earth Coalition Ground Forces. We are here to help. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small package. Are you hungry? This is food. It tastes bad, but it will fill your stomach. Tal took the package with trembling hands. He looked at this small, soft creature who had just destroyed a Valari army like it was nothing. You came, Tal whispered. You actually came, Do-hyun nodded. You asked for help. We heard you. He said it simply, as if crossing the galaxy to fight an empire was the most natural thing in the world. Now, please, stay low. The fighting is not over yet. We will protect you. Tal watched him run back to join his squad. Around him, the battle continued. Valari soldiers fell. Kessaran prisoners were freed. And somewhere in the distance, High Priestess Lyra was screaming orders that no one could follow. The demons had come, and they were nothing like the stories. The battle for the capital city lasted 2 days. Tal spent most of that time hiding in the basement of a ruined building with other Kessaran survivors. Above them, the sounds of fighting echoed through the streets. Energy blasts, explosions, shouting in languages Tal did not understand. Sometimes, human soldiers would find their hiding place. They would check if anyone was hurt, leave packages of food and water, and then disappear back into the chaos. They never stayed long. They were always moving, always fighting, always pushing deeper into Valari territory. On the 3rd day, the fighting stopped. Tal climbed out of the basement and looked around. The capital city was damaged, but standing. The Valari flags had been torn down. The white and gold temple that Lyra had built was now a pile of rubble. Human soldiers walked through the streets, talking into small devices attached to their shoulders. And everywhere Tal looked, Kessarans were crying, not from fear, not from pain. They were crying because they were free. Tal found Sergeant Yoon Do-hyun sitting on a broken wall, eating one of those awful food packages the humans seemed to carry everywhere. The soldier looked tired but calm, like he had done this many times before. You won, Tal said, sitting next to him. Do-hyun shrugged. For now. The Valari on the ground are beaten, but there will be more. There are always more. Do-hyun have stage, the firmament. Do-hyun have created. Do-hyun have stage. Do-hyun have stage. Do-hyun have created. Do-hyun have stated. Do-hyun have created. Do-hyun have stage part. Do-hyun have create. How did you do it? There were so many of them. They had better weapons, better armor, more soldiers. How did you win? Do-hyun thought about this for a moment. Training, equipment, experience. He paused. Also, we really wanted to win. The Valari fight because their priests tell them to. We fight because we chose to. Why did you choose to help us? You do not know us. You have never seen our world before. Why would you cross the galaxy for strangers? The soldier looked at Tal with an expression that was hard to read. Because you asked. Because someone needed help. That is enough reason. Oh, Tal did not understand. In his experience, no one did anything without wanting something in return. The Valari had conquered his world for resources and religious glory. Every species he had ever heard of operated the same way. Power, profit, control. What do you want from us? Tal asked. What is your price? No price, Do-hyun said. We help because it is right. We help because we remember what it was like to have no one come when we needed them. He finished his food and stood up. Come, I want you to meet someone. He led Tal through the ruined streets to a large building that had once been a Valari command center. Now, it was filled with human soldiers and equipment. In the center of the main room, a woman was working at a table covered with medical supplies. Medical Officer Choi Eun-ji, Do-hyun said. Best healer in the fleet. She has been working for 3 days without sleep. Eun-ji looked up. She had dark hair tied back and tired eyes. but she smiled when she saw Tal. Another patient? No. This is Tal. He is the one who sent the message. Unji's eyes widened. You sent the distress call? Tal nodded. I did not think anyone would hear it. We heard it. Unji walked around the table and took Tal's hands in hers. Your message went through 17 relay stations and 4 different translation programs before it reached Earth. It took our intelligence teams 2 weeks just to figure out what language it was in. But we heard it. And we came. Tal felt tears forming in his eyes. My sister. The Valari took her for their religious education. She came back broken. She does not speak anymore. She does not glow. Can you help her? Unji's expression became serious. I do not know. I would need to examine her, but I can try. She squeezed his hands. Bring her to me. Whatever was done to her, we will do everything possible to help. Over the next few days, Tal watched the humans work. They were not like any species he had ever seen or heard of. They did not conquer. They did not demand worship or tribute. They simply helped. They set up medical stations and treated wounded Kesserans. They distributed food from their ships. They helped clear rubble and repair damaged buildings. They searched for survivors trapped in collapsed structures, working day and night without complaint. Tal brought his sister Yuna to Medical Officer Unji. The human healer examined her gently, running strange machines over her head and body, making notes on a small device. Her face was sad but determined. The Valari did something to her mind, Unji explained. It is like they built walls inside her thoughts, blocking her from herself. I have seen this before in other liberated populations. It is cruel, but not permanent. Can you fix it? Not quickly, but yes, I think so. It will take time, patience, and care. Her mind needs to heal like any other wound. Unji put her hand on Tal's shoulder. Do not give up on her. Talk to her. Sit with her. Remind her that she is safe. The walls will come down eventually. Tal spent his nights sitting with Yuna, speaking softly about their childhood, about their grandmother's songs, about the glowing fruits that used to grow in their garden. She did not respond, but sometimes he thought he saw a flicker in her eyes. During the days, Tal helped the humans as a translator. He learned their names and their stories. Lieutenant Commander Shin Taeyong, a tall man who planned their battles like they were puzzles to be solved. Lieutenant Ha Min-jae, a young pilot who laughed too loudly and flew his ship like he was dancing with the stars. And above them all, Admiral Park Gina. Tal met her on the 5th day, when she came down from her ship to inspect the liberation efforts. She was a small woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She walked through the streets slowly, stopping to talk to every human soldier and every Kesseran survivor she encountered. When she reached Tal, she stopped and studied him carefully. You are the one who sent the message, she said. It was not a question. Yes, Admiral. That was brave. You had no way of knowing if anyone would answer. You had no way of knowing if we would be any better than the Valari. But you tried, anyway. Tal looked at the ground. I had no other choice. My people were dying. I would have called anyone who might help, even demons. Admiral Park smiled. It was a small smile, quiet and knowing. Demons. Yes, the Valari call us that. Many species do. Do you know why? Because you are dangerous? Because we cannot be controlled. The Admiral looked out over the ruined city, her eyes distant. Every empire in this galaxy operates the same way. They find weaker species. They conquer them. They use them. The strong rule the weak. That is the natural order. They say. That is how things have always been. She turned back to Tal. We reject that order. We fight against it. We protect the weak, because we believe no one should have to suffer alone. To empires built on cruelty and conquest, that makes us the most dangerous thing in existence. So you are not demons? Oh, we can be demons when we need to be. Her smile faded. We can be the worst nightmare of anyone who preys on the helpless. We can bring fire and destruction like nothing this galaxy has ever seen. But we choose when to be demons. And we only choose it in defense of others. She put her hand on Tal's shoulder, the same way Yunji had done. You did not pray for demons, young one. You prayed for help. And help is what we will always try to be. Then she walked away to continue her inspection, leaving Tal standing alone with the strange feeling that perhaps the universe was not as cold and empty as he had believed. Perhaps there was kindness in the darkness after all. 2 weeks after the liberation began, Captain Bake Sora invited Kesaren leaders to visit her ship, the Defiance. Tal was included because of his role as translator and because he had sent the original message that brought the humans to their world. The ship was enormous. Tal had never been in space before, and the sight of Kesara from above made him forget to breathe. His world was beautiful, even with the scars of occupation visible on its surface. The purple mountains, the silver seas, the forests that glowed faintly in the darkness. It is a lovely world, Captain Sora said, standing beside him at the viewing window. We will make sure it stays free. She led them through the ship to a large room filled with chairs and screens. The Kesaren elders sat together, their skin flickering with nervous colors. An ancient being named Whisper of Dawn, whose glow was so faint it was almost invisible, spoke for them all. We thank you for your help, Whisper of Dawn said through Tal's translation. But we do not understand you. The Valari priests told us stories about your kind. They said you were monsters who destroyed everything you touched. They said you were chaos given form, enemies of all order and peace. Captain Sora nodded slowly. I understand why you are confused. The Valari lied about many things, but not everything they said about us was false. We are a complicated species. Perhaps you should see our history before you decide what to think of us. She touched a control, and the screens around the room came to life with images. Tal watched in horror. He saw humans killing humans. Wars that stretched across continents. Weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash of light. He saw bodies piled in mass graves. He saw people starving while others had more than they could ever use. He saw forests burned and oceans poisoned and air turned to smoke. The images continued. Slavery, torture, genocide. Words that Tal had only learned from the Valari occupation, shown now in the history of the species that had saved his world. This is what we were, Captain Sora said quietly. This is what we are capable of. We did these things to ourselves, to our own kind. For thousands of years, we hurt each other in every way you can imagine. We came very close to destroying ourselves completely, not once, but many times. The Kesaren elders were silent. Their skin had gone gray with shock and fear. Even Whisper of Dawn, who had lived for centuries and seen many terrible things, seemed unable to speak. Why are you showing us this? Tal asked. Why tell us how terrible you are? Because you deserve to know the truth. We are not heroes. We are not saints. We are not the gentle saviors that you might want us to be. Captain Sora turned off the screens. But we are also not the same as we were. We changed. She touched another control, and new images appeared. Humans building instead of destroying. Cities rising from ruins. Forests replanted. Oceans cleaned. People of different colors and beliefs working together. Laughing together. Building a future together. We looked at our history, Sora continued. We looked at all the suffering we had caused, all the pain we had created, and we decided that we did not want to be that anymore. It was not easy. We said, Tenbirding backed, too plain. It took generations. There were setbacks and failures, but slowly, we built something better. The images shifted again. Now they showed humans in space, reaching new worlds, meeting other species. Some of those meetings were peaceful. Others were not. When we found that we were not alone in the universe, we made a choice. We could have become conquerors like the Valari. We had the power. We had the technology. We could have built an empire of our own. Sora's voice was steady. Instead, we chose to be helpers. We chose to use our strength to protect those who could not protect themselves. Whisper of Dawn finally spoke. Why? After all that darkness, why choose light? Sora was quiet for a long moment. Because we remember what it felt like to suffer. We remember the wars, and the hunger, and the fear. We remember what it was like to have no one come when we needed help. She looked at the old Kesserin with something like sadness in her eyes. We cannot change our past. We cannot undo the terrible things we did. But we can choose what we do now. We can choose to be the help we wished we had. Tal thought about this. He thought about the Valari, who believed that the strong should rule the weak, that conquest was holy, that suffering was a gift from the gods. He thought about his own people, who had chosen peace so completely that they had forgotten how to fight. And he thought about these strange humans, who carried the memory of terrible violence in their blood but chose kindness instead. The Valari call you demons because you destroyed their fleet, Tal said slowly. But that is not the real reason, is it? Sora smiled. No. The Valari have defeated many species in battle. They do not fear warriors. They fear us, because we cannot be predicted. We cannot be bribed or threatened or convinced to look away while they hurt others. To an empire built on cruelty, compassion is the most dangerous weapon in the universe. One of the younger Kesserin elders, a being named Quietwater, asked a question that Tal had been wondering about. What happens now? You have freed our world, but the Valari Empire is vast. They will come back. They will bring more ships, more soldiers. How can you protect us forever? We cannot, Sora admitted. We are not gods. We cannot be everywhere at once. But we can teach you to protect yourselves. We can give you the tools and knowledge you need. And we can make sure that the Valari know the price of attacking this world again. What price? Sora's expression hardened. Us. We will come back. Every time. No matter how far away we are, no matter how many ships they send, if the Valari attack Kasara again, they will face the full power of the Earth Coalition. And this time, we will not stop at defending one planet. The meeting continued for several more hours. The humans explained their plans for Kasara's recovery. Medical support, food supplies, technology to rebuild what the Valari had destroyed, and training for any Kesserins who wanted to learn how to fight so they would never be helpless again. As they prepared to return to the surface, Whisper of Dawn approached Captain Sora. The old Kesserin's glow was stronger now, flickering with colors that Tal had not seen in months. I have lived for 600 years, Whisper of Dawn said. I have met many species. I have studied many philosophies. I have never encountered beings like you. Is that good or bad? Sora asked. I do not know yet. Your history is terrible. Your capacity for violence is frightening. But your capacity for choice is remarkable. The old Kesserin bowed. A gesture of deep respect. Thank you for choosing to help us. Whatever you call yourselves, whatever others call you, to the Kesserin people, you will always be friends. Tal watched the exchange with tears in his eyes. He thought about his grandfather, shot down for offering friendship. He thought about his sister, broken by Valari cruelty. He thought about all the suffering his people had endured. And he thought about these impossible humans, who had seen the worst in themselves and decided to be better. Maybe that was what made them truly special. Not their weapons or their ships or their soldiers, but their choice. They had looked into the darkness of their own nature and decided to become the light they never had. That was something even demons could be proud of. High Priestess Lyra escaped on the second day of the battle for the capital. A small shuttle had carried her away, while her soldiers died in the streets. Tal did not know this until much later. He only knew that her body was never found among the Valari dead. 3 weeks after the liberation, she returned. The first sign of trouble came from the human sensors, machines that could detect ships at impossible distances. Admiral Park Gina called an emergency meeting aboard the Defiance. Tal was invited because he understood the Valari better than anyone else on the planet. 2,300 ships, the Admiral said, pointing to a display that showed the approaching fleet as a cloud of red dots. Everything the Valari could gather from the surrounding sectors. Lyra has convinced the Empire that losing Kessara would be a fatal wound to their pride. Lieutenant Commander Shin Taeyong studied the display with a calm expression. We have 42 ships remaining. That is roughly 55 to 1 odds. I can count, Lieutenant Commander. I am just making sure everyone understands the situation clearly. The human officers discussed options. Retreat was possible. The Earth Coalition had other priorities, other worlds, to protect. Losing 42 ships in a hopeless battle would weaken their ability to help anyone else. It was the logical choice. Tal felt his heart sinking. He had dared to hope. He had dared to believe that these humans were different. But faced with impossible odds, surely even they would choose survival over sacrifice. Then Lieutenant Ha Minjae spoke up. The young pilot who laughed too loudly and flew like he was dancing with the stars. If we leave now, the Valari will kill every Kesseran on the planet. They will make an example of this world. They will show the galaxy what happens to species that accept human help. I am aware of that, Admiral Park said quietly. Then we cannot leave. Lieutenant, I appreciate your courage. But courage does not win battles against 55 to 1 odds. We need to consider what is actually possible. Minjae shook his head. No, we need to consider what is right. We came here because someone asked for help. We told these people they could trust us. If we leave now, we prove the Valari right. We prove that humans are no different from any other species. We take when it is easy, and we run when it is hard. The room was silent. Tal watched the faces of the human officers. Some looked scared. Some looked determined. All of them looked very young, to be making decisions about life and death. Admiral Park turned to Captain Sora. Your opinion? Sora did not hesitate. We stay. We fight. We die, if we must. But we do not abandon people who trusted us. Medical Officer Choi, Unji had been quiet throughout the meeting. Now she spoke in a voice that was steady despite everything. I have patients in my medical bay. Kesserans, who are just beginning to heal. Children who smiled for the first time yesterday. An old man who thanked me this morning for giving him hope. She met the Admiral's eyes. I will not tell them that their hope was a lie. One by one, the other officers gave their opinions. Some argued for retreat. Most argued for staying. The debate was passionate, but respectful. These humans did not agree on everything, but they listened to each other. Finally, Admiral Park held up her hand for silence. She was quiet for a long moment, looking at the display of enemy ships. 2,300 vessels, coming to destroy everything they had built. Lieutenant Commander Shin. Begin preparing defensive positions. Lieutenant Ha. Coordinate with the fighter squadrons. All hands to battle stations. She turned to look at Tal. Return to the surface. Tell your people what is coming. Tell them to prepare for the worst. A pause. But also tell them that we will not leave. Whatever happens, we will face it together. Tal nodded and left the meeting. But before he reached the shuttle bay, Admiral Park caught up with him. There is one more thing, she said. I am going to broadcast a message to the Valari fleet. I want you to hear it. She led him to the command center of the Defiance, a large room filled with screens and officers working at their stations. The Admiral took her position at the center and activated the communication system. This is Admiral Park Gina of the Earth Coalition, she began. Her voice was calm, almost bored. High Priestess Lyra, I know you are listening. I want to offer you one chance to withdraw your forces. A harsh laugh came through the speakers. Lyra's voice, thick with contempt. Withdraw? You are outnumbered 50-1, demon. Your pathetic fleet will be dust in minutes. Why would I possibly withdraw? Because the last 3 species who called us demons at those odds are not species anymore. Silence. The Valari communication channel stayed open, but no one spoke. Admiral Park continued. I am not telling you this to boast, High Priestess. I am telling you because I genuinely hope you will listen. We do not like that part of ourselves. We do not enjoy becoming the monsters others believe us to be. We would rather be helpers than destroyers. We would rather heal than kill. Her voice hardened. But you are threatening a planet under our protection. You are threatening people who have already suffered enough. So please, just go home. Take your ships and your soldiers and go back to your empire. Tell them that Kisara is not worth the price you will pay. Lyra's response was immediate. Price? You speak of price? The only price here is the one your species will pay for defying the will of the gods. We will burn your ships. We will slaughter every human on this world. And then we will bring fire to your pathetic earth and end your species forever. I was afraid you would say that. Admiral Park closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, something had changed. The calm, bored expression was gone. In its place was something cold and hard, something that made Tal's skin go gray with instinctive fear. Very well, High Priestess. You have made your choice. Now listen carefully, because I will only say this once. She leaned forward. I am Admiral Park Gina. I have fought in 17 major engagements against superior forces. I have destroyed fleets larger than yours. I have broken empires that thought they were invincible. I am not telling you this to frighten you. I am telling you this because I want you to understand exactly what you are facing. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire room. You call us demons. You are about to find out why. She cut the transmission and turned to her officers. Battle stations. All ships to defensive formation. Weapons free in 30 minutes. Tal stood frozen, watching the woman who had spoken so gently about choosing light over darkness. Now he saw the other side of humanity. The side that had nearly destroyed itself. The side that could break empires and exterminate species. The side that made even the vast Valari Empire tremble. He understood now why the Valari called them demons. Not because they were evil, but because when they chose to fight, nothing in the universe could stop them. As he returned to the shuttle, Tal prayed for the first time in months. He did not pray to the gods of his people, or the gods of the Valari, or any god at all. He prayed that humanity's light would survive the darkness that was coming. He prayed that the demons would not need to show the galaxy what they truly were. But deep in his heart, he knew that prayer would not be answered. The Battle of Kisara was about to begin. The Battle of Kisara began at dawn. Tal watched from the surface, surrounded by Kesarans who had gathered on the hills outside the capital. They could not fight. They had no weapons, no ships, no way to help. All they could do was watch the sky and wait for their fate to be decided. Above them, 42 human ships faced 2,300 Valari warships. The numbers were impossible. The outcome seemed certain. The Valari attacked first. A wave of missiles and energy beams tore through space toward the tiny human fleet. Tal expected to see the ships explode, to watch the defenders die in a single, overwhelming assault. Instead, the human ships scattered. They moved like nothing Tal had ever seen. They twisted and rolled and dove, slipping through gaps in the enemy fire that should not have existed. They were too small to destroy the massive Valari warships with direct attacks, so they did not try. They attacked the joints between ships. They targeted weapon systems and engine ports. They flew so close to enemy hulls that the Valari could not fire without hitting their own vessels. The first hour was chaos. Explosions lit up the sky like a second sunrise. Valari ships burned and broke apart. Human ships took damage and kept fighting. The communication channels were filled with voices shouting orders, warnings, desperate calls for help. Captain Bake Sora led her cruiser, the Morning Star, into the heart of the enemy formation. She was targeting a massive carrier that was launching fighters by the hundreds. Her ship was already damaged, trailing smoke and fire from a dozen wounds. "All hands, prepare for impact," she announced calmly. "Evacuate to escape pods." That is an order. Tal learned later what happened next. The crew of the Morning Star abandoned ship in the tiny escape pods, trusting their captain to give them the time they needed. Sora stayed at the controls, alone on the bridge of her dying ship. She aimed directly at the Valari carrier and accelerated to maximum speed. The impact destroyed both ships instantly. The carrier's explosion took out 3 more Valari vessels nearby. In a single act of sacrifice, Sora had created a gap in the enemy formation that the other human ships rushed to exploit. She was not the only one. Lieutenant Ha Min-jae, the young pilot who laughed too loudly and flew like he was dancing, found himself alone against a Valari dreadnought. His fighter was out of missiles. His guns were nearly empty. The massive ship was charging its main cannon, preparing to fire on the surface of Kasara itself. Min-jae did not hesitate. He flew his fighter directly into the cannon barrel and detonated his remaining fuel. The dreadnought's main weapon exploded from within, creating a chain reaction that tore the entire ship apart. Min-jae died instantly, but his death saved millions of lives on the ground below. The battle continued for hours. Human ships fell one by one. The Defiance took hit after hit, but kept fighting. Admiral Park, directing the defense from her damaged bridge. Her voice never wavered, even when she was told that half her crew was dead. "Maintain formation. Protect the planet. Do not give up." By the 4th hour, only 12 human ships remained. The Valari still had over 1,000. Victory for the Empire seemed certain, at last. Then new contacts appeared on the sensors. They came from the edge of the system, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. 100 ships, then 200, then 500. They were not human designs. They were not Valari designs. They were something else entirely. The first to arrive were the Tesserae, a species that Tal had never heard of. Their ships were beautiful, curved and flowing like water frozen in space. 30 years ago, humans had liberated their world from a different empire. Now, they had come to return the favor. Behind them came the Morrigan Collective, freed from Valari control a decade past. Their ships were dark and angular, bristling with weapons. They had sworn never to submit to tyranny again, and they had traveled across the galaxy to make sure Kasara would not fall. More species arrived. The quiet ones, who spoke only in mathematics and had been saved by humans from extinction. The Broken Circle, who had once been enemies of Earth until humans chose mercy over vengeance. Dozens of species, hundreds of ships, all responding to a single message that had gone out when the battle began. "The humans are in trouble at Kasara. They need help. They came for us. Now we come for them." High Priestess Lyra's voice came over the communication channels, screaming orders that no one could follow. The Valari fleet was caught between the surviving human ships and the arriving allies. For the first time in centuries, the Empire faced enemies on all sides. The battle turned. It was not quick. It was not clean. More ships died on both sides. More lives were lost. But slowly, inevitably, the Valari began to fall. Admiral Park Gina broadcast one final message to Lyra. "High Priestess, your fleet is broken. Your reinforcements will not arrive in time. Surrender now, and we will spare your remaining crews. Continue fighting, and none of you will survive." Lyra's response was a scream of rage, followed by silence. She tried to run. Her flagship, surrounded by the last of her loyal vessels, attempted to break through the Allied lines and escape to Valari space. But the Tesserae were waiting for her. They remembered what the Valari had done to their world. They were not in a forgiving mood. Lyra's ship was destroyed in a flash of light, along with everyone aboard. The surviving Valari surrendered. They had no other choice. The Empire had sent its greatest fleet to crush one small world, and that fleet was gone. More than 2,000 ships destroyed, an entire sector's military power broken in a single day. The Battle of Kisara was over. On the surface, Tal watched the last explosions fade from the sky. Around him, Kesserans were glowing colors that he had not seen since the occupation began. Hope, joy, relief, gratitude. His sister Yuna stood beside him, and for the first time in months, her skin flickered with a faint, uncertain light. She was still not speaking. She was still not herself. But something had changed. Something had woken up inside her when the sky filled with ships coming to help. Tal put his arm around her and held her close. "We are free," he whispered. "We are really free." Above them, the Allied fleet gathered to tend to their wounded and honor their dead. The Defiance was barely functioning, held together by emergency repairs and the determination of its crew. Admiral Park Gina stood on her damaged bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been the pride of the Valari Empire. She was crying. No one mentioned it. "Get me a count of our losses," she said quietly, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that we held the line." The message would spread across the galaxy in the days to come. The story of 42 ships against 2,000. The story of Captain Sora's sacrifice and Lieutenant Minjae's final flight. The story of 100 species coming together to protect one small world because humans had asked them to. The story of demons who chose to be angels. And the story of an empire that learned too late what happens when you threaten the people that demons protect. The Battle of Kisara would become legend. But for those who were there, it was not a legend. It was simply the day that the impossible became real. 6 months passed. Kisara was healing. The factories that the Valari had built were being converted to produce food and medicine instead of weapons. The mines were closed, and the workers were learning new skills. The purple mountains were beginning to show their true colors again, as the pollution faded from the air. Tal spent his days helping with the reconstruction. He translated for the human advisors who were teaching Kesserans how to build, how to farm, how to create a society that could take care of itself. He spent his evenings with his sister, who was slowly coming back to herself. Yuna still did not speak much, but she had started to glow again. Soft colors at first, just hints of emotion breaking through the walls that the Valari had built in her mind. Then brighter, stronger, more like the girl she used to be. Medical Officer Unji visited every week to check on her progress. "She is doing well," Unji said one afternoon, watching Yuna work in a small garden they had planted together. "The mind is a remarkable thing. It wants to heal. Sometimes it just needs time and safety." The humans were preparing to leave. The Earth Coalition had declared Kisara a protected world, meaning that any attack would be considered an attack on humanity itself. But the soldiers and ships could not stay forever. There were other worlds that needed help, other distress calls waiting to be answered. Admiral Park Gina came down from the Defiance one last time to say goodbye. The ship was repaired now, scarred but functional, ready to return to the stars. The Admiral looked older than she had 6 months ago. The battle had cost her many friends. She walked through the capital city, stopping to speak with Kesserans who recognized her. They bowed. They wept. They thanked her in colors that needed no translation. She accepted their gratitude with quiet dignity. But Tal could see that it made her uncomfortable. "Heroes are supposed to enjoy being praised," Tal said, walking beside her. "Heroes are the people who did not come back," she replied. "Sora, Minjae, 3,000 others. I am just the one who survived." They reached the edge of the city, where a shuttle waited to take the Admiral back to her ship. Sergeant Yoon Do-hyun was there, loading the last of the equipment that the humans were taking with them. He had become a friend to Tal over the past months, teaching him human games and sharing stories about Earth. "Sergeant," Tal said, "I have a question before you go." "Ask." Will you come back? If we need you again? Do-hyun smiled, the same kind smile he had shown when they first met, when he offered a ration bar to a stranger in the middle of a war. If you need us. But how can you keep doing this? You fight for people you do not know. You die for strangers. You cross the galaxy to answer distress calls from species you have never met. Why? How can any species be that selfless? The soldier thought about this for a long moment. He looked at the sky, at the stars that were just becoming visible as the sun set behind the mountains. Then he looked back at Tal with an expression that was both sad and hopeful. We are not selfless, Do-hyun said. We are afraid. Afraid? Of what? Of who we used to be. Of who we could become again. He sat down on a broken wall, the same way he had sat on the first day of the liberation. You have seen our history. You have seen our history. You have seen our history. You know what we did to ourselves. All that violence, all that cruelty, all that suffering. It is still inside us. Every human carries the potential for terrible things. Then how do you control it? By choosing, every day, to be better. By helping others instead of hurting them. By being the people we wish we had been. Do-hyun shrugged. Someone once said that the measure of a person is not what they do when it is easy, but what they do when it is hard. We try to measure ourselves by the hardest standard we can imagine. Admiral Park had been listening. Now she joined the conversation, her voice thoughtful. There was a time when humanity believed we were alone in the universe. We looked at the stars and saw nothing but emptiness. We fought each other because we thought there was no one else. No one watching, no one to judge us. She paused. Then we discovered that we were not alone, that there were other minds, other civilizations, other beings looking up at the same stars. And suddenly, we had a choice. We could continue being what we had always been, or we could become something new. What made you choose to change? The Admiral smiled. It was the same small, quiet smile she had shown when they first spoke about demons and light. A message, she said. A long time ago, humans received a distress call from a species we had never met. They were being attacked by an empire, much like the Valari. They had no weapons, no ships, no hope. They asked for help, not knowing if anyone would answer. Tal felt something tighten in his chest. What happened? We went. We fought. We saved them. The Admiral looked out at the healing planet, at the Kesserans working in their gardens and children playing in the streets. And something changed in us. We realized that we could be more than our worst impulses. We could be the help we had always wished for. We could be the answer to someone else's prayer. She turned to face Tal directly. That is why we came when you called. Not because we are good people. Not because we are selfless or heroic. But because every time we answer a distress call, we become a little more like the species we want to be. The shuttle was ready. The last of the equipment was loaded. It was time for the humans to leave. Do-hyun shook Tal's hand in the human way, grip firm and brief. We will come. Thank you, Tal said. For everything. He watched them board the shuttle and rise into the darkening sky. He watched until the small craft became a star among stars, disappearing into the vastness of space. His sister appeared beside him. She did not speak, but she took his hand and squeezed it gently. Her skin glowed a soft pink, the color of affection and warmth. They were not what I expected, Tal said to her. I prayed for demons because I had no other choice. I expected monsters. Instead, I found people who looked into the darkness and decided to be light. Yuna squeezed his hand again. For a moment, her glow brightened. They called themselves humans, Tal continued. The Valari called them demons. But I think both names are wrong. They are something the galaxy has never seen before, something that should be impossible. He looked up at the stars, at the vast emptiness that was not really empty at all. Somewhere out there, human ships were flying toward another crisis, another world in need, another species crying out for help, and they would answer. They would always answer. They call themselves neighbors, Tal said softly. And I think that is the most powerful thing anyone can be. He stood there for a long time, holding his sister's hand, watching the stars. Somewhere in the darkness, the demons of Sol were flying toward another dawn, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the years that followed, Kesara recovered fully. The scars of occupation faded. New generations grew up knowing peace instead of war. And every year, on the anniversary of the liberation, the Kessaran people gathered to watch the stars and remember. They did not pray for demons anymore. They did not need to. Because somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between stars, the neighbors were watching, and they would always come when called.